ওকে, আমি রেকর্ডিং শুরু করলাম। আচ্ছা, আমি ভাস্কর, আমাদের গ্লোবাল ব্রিজ গ্রুপের রেগুলার ডিসকাশন সেশন। তো আজকে আমি একটা আমার রেগুলার প্রেজেন্টেশনটা শেয়ার করি একটু, জাস্ট আ সেকেন্ড। ওকে, এটা আমার স্ক্রিন দেখা যাচ্ছে?
হ্যাঁ, দেখা যাচ্ছে।
আচ্ছা, তো আমাদের গ্লোবাল ব্রিজ গ্রুপের ডিসকাশন সেশন আমরা ফর্মালি শুরু করেছি 3 সপ্তাহ আগে বোধহয়। তো আমাদের অলরেডি বাট ওই ফর্মাল শুরু করার আগেও আমাদের বেশ কয়েকটা সেশন হয়ে গিয়েছিল। তো এখানে প্রত্যেকটা সেশনের ডেসক্রিপশন আছে এবং দা ভিডিও লিংক আছে, এবং আমরা একটা ইউটিউব চ্যানেলে সবগুলা ভিডিও পোস্ট করি। তো সোফার জিন্না দুটার লেকচার দিয়েছে, রশিদ হাসান ভাই নো ট্রাম্পের উপর একটা লেকচার দিয়েছেন, নওয়াজ ভাই সিম্পলিফাইড বিডিং এর উপর একটা লেকচার দিয়েছেন, এবং গত ক্লাসটা একটা ইম্পর্টেন্ট ক্লাস ছিল যেখানে আইএমপি এবং এমপি টুর্নামেন্টের পয়েন্ট সিস্টেম কিভাবে কাজ করে এবং স্ট্র্যাটেজি কিভাবে ডিফারেন্ট, সেটা আমাদের অরুণাবতা উনি এক্সপ্লেইন করেছেন। সো দ্যাট ওয়াজ এ ভেরি ইন্টারেস্টিং ওয়ান। আর আজকে আমাদের মুশফিক ভাই মেলবোর্ন থেকে উনি কথা বলবেন the art and science of squeeze. I'm really looking forward to it, যে কি হয়, মানে আমি আজকে অনেক কিছু শিখবো বলে এক্সপেক্ট করতেছি। and next section আগামী সপ্তাহে আমি কথা বলবো এক্সপ্লোরিং স্ল্যাম। আমার কাছে মনে হয় যে আমাদের অনেকের মধ্যেই কখন কোন মেথডটা আমরা ইউজ করি স্ল্যামে হয়তো পুরোপুরি ক্লিয়ার না, এবং অনেক সময় দেখা যায় যে আমরা স্ল্যাম আস করছি কিন্তু পার্টনার হয়তো বুঝতে পারছে না। তো ওই জিনিসটা একটু ক্লিয়ার করার চেষ্টা করব। তারপরের সপ্তাহে ওপেনিং লিড নিয়ে কথা বলবে সাইদ টরন্টো থেকে। এরপরে জিন্না উইল গিভ এ লেকচার অন ডিক্লেয়ারার প্লে, সেটা মে 23 তারিখে। আর মে 30 তারিখে অরুণোদয় ক্যালিফোর্নিয়া থেকে ও explain করবে to show the interest in slam at lower bid level, so that will be an interesting one. So এখানে সে কয়েকটা কনভেনশন সে কভার করবে, যেটা জ্যাকোবি, টুনো ট্রাম্প, জর্ডান এবং স্প্লিন্টার। যদিও স্প্লিন্টার নেওয়াজ ভাই কভার করেছিলেন আগের সপ্তাহে, বাট হি উইল প্রবাবলি গো লিটল মোর ডিটেইল। আর এরপরে আমি আরো 2টা সপ্তাহ এখানে লিস্ট করেছি যেখানে আমরা এখনো কেউ পাইনি। আপনাদের মধ্যে যে কেউ আপনাদের নলেজ যদি শেয়ার করতে চান, মোস্ট ওয়েলকাম। তো আজকে মুশফিক ভাই, থ্যাংক ইউ ভেরি মাচ, 7 o'clock in the morning in Melbourne আমাদেরকে একটা ভেরি ইম্পর্টেন্ট জিনিস স্কুইজ নিয়ে কথা বলবেন উনি। ফ্লোর ইজ ইয়ার্স মুশফিক ভাই। আমি আনশেয়ার করছি, আপনি শেয়ার করেন।
আমার স্ক্রিন দেখা যাচ্ছে?
দেখা যাচ্ছে। আপনি যদি প্রেজেন্টেশন মোডে যান।
হ্যাঁ, আমি যাচ্ছি। সো
এটা লাস্ট স্লাইডে গেছে বোধহয়।
ভাস্কর অলরেডি আমাকে ইন্ট্রোডিউস করেছে। My name is Mushfiq Rahman. I live in Melbourne, which is a city near the South Pole, where lots of kangaroos, koalas, and crocodiles roam around. No, I'm just kidding. It just happens to be the most livable city in the world. And you might ask, what has that got to do with bridge? Absolutely nothing. But whenever I speak with my siblings and nephews and nieces, and off late with my Iskapon teammate Maruf, I always manage to push in this little bit of information, and this seems to rattle them a little bit, and it gives me a little bit of a kick. Anyway, without much further ado, let me come to the topic of our conversation today. The art and science of the squeeze. The title may sound a little grandiose, uh, something in bridge being referred to as both an art as well as a science. Well, it is an art because it does require a certain level of finesse and expertise and mastery, if you will. But this is a kind of mastery that you can learn without being a grandmaster in SCBL. And the reason you can learn this mastery is because it is a science. And as in science, which obeys rules and regulations, the squeeze actually is quite deterministic once you have figured out that the conditions for a squeeze exist. So from that point of view, it is scientific. And once you have acquired the basic rules, you know when a squeeze is on and when a squeeze is not possible. And I can tell you, being able to execute a squeeze is one of the most pleasurable things in bridge. And being squeezed is one of the most excruciatingly painful sitting in a bridge table, knowing that your nice, good cards are being eaten away by the opponent who is squeezing you. I'll only talk about simple principles because by no means I am an expert myself. Uh, and I hope together with the simple principles, all of us would explore further because there is a lot of material online that you can actually look up. But hopefully today's discussion will give you the simple vocabulary, as you will, uh, to be able to follow those more advanced discussions that you can find in the internet, right? So let me start with a few definitions in squeeze. The first uh, uh, terminology is busy card. Now, what is a busy card? A busy card, these are working cards that are useful as winners, anticipated winners, stoppers, guards, etc. It has some utility to the defender. And an idle card, sorry, was there a question? Okay. An idle card is a card which is not a busy card, which is a non-working cards, which is not a busy card. It serves no useful purpose or serve as a duplicate function already being performed by the defender's partner. For example, if you have the Queen of Spades, and if your partner has the Jack of Spades, then the Queen of Spades is not quite a busy card. You can actually discard it because your partner can defend the suit with a lower ranking card, the Jack. But this is something you got to figure out as a defender. When is a card a busy card and when is a card not a busy card? Because if it is a busy card, you have to hang on to it because if you discard it, the declarer will take advantage of it and he will score an easy trick with a low ranking card. And as a defender, this is your job to prevent it. As a declarer, this is your job to make it happen by squeezing him. And what is the squeeze? Okay, the thumbnails are coming on top of my slide. How do I get rid of that? Ashkar.
আমরা দেখতে পাচ্ছি না।
না 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 আমার স্ক্রিনে আমার স্লাইডের ডান দিকে থাম্বনেইলটা আসছে। So it is blocking part of my screen.
Oh, but
So,
we are fine. We are not seeing it. So I
I
mean,
know, but I need to read my slide.
Oh, okay. আপনি কি আনশেয়ার করে আবার শেয়ার করবেন?
না না, show. Let me see. Oh, I can just drag it to the right.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So squeeze. What is the definition of a squeeze? Briefly, it can be stated as follows. When a defending hand no longer contains an idle card, that means the defending hand has only busy cards, it can be forced to release a busy card. And if this discard of a busy card provides the declarer with a winner, to which he would not be normally entitled to, then the defender has been squeezed. So squeezing means you have forced the defender to discard a busy card. And this entitles you as the declarer to win the trick that you would not be normally entitled to. Let's start with an example, because nothing works in terms of explaining something than an example. So in this example, the 10 cards have already been played, and the game is now reduced to the last 3 cards. And South is the declarer. Let's say he's playing no trumps, right? So out of the 3 remaining cards, how many winners does he have? He has the King of Hearts and the Queen of Clubs. King of Hearts because he is playing from his hand, and Queen of Clubs because he has an entry to the Queen of Clubs. And he has got 1 loser. So the idea of the squeeze is to be able to convert that loser into a winner, so that even though nominally you have 1 loser in this position, you want to win all 3 tricks. And the way you do that, you play the squeeze card, and I'll come later on as to what the squeeze card is. In this case, the squeeze card is the King of Hearts. So if you play the King of Hearts, what options does West have? What is he going to play on the King of Hearts? If he plays the Queen of Spades, then it promotes your Jack. And if he discards a club, then your Queen 6 club is going to run. So he is in a no-win situation. Regardless of what he discards, you have squeezed West. And the reason it is possible is because West, in this case, has busy cards in 2 suits. And later on, we'll see that this is one of the preconditions of a squeeze. In order for a squeeze to exist, a defender must have busy cards in 2 suits, and he must have no idle cards, because if he has an idle card, he can always discard the idle card, right? Now, sometimes in normal play, we manage to squeeze an opponent, but sometimes those squeezes are self-inflicted because the opponent has not been taking notice of what cards his partner has discarded, etc. So he gets squeezed even though there's no reason for him to get squeezed, right? And really, there is no remedy against self-inflicted wounds. So this discussion would not talk about those kind of squeezes. We are only going to talk about squeezes which can be orchestrated and executed because the necessary and sufficient conditions for a squeeze exist, or you have played it in a way so that you have created the condition, and then eventually you apply the squeeze. Let's look at another example. Example 2, again, quite similar. South is playing, and it's the same as the previous one, but we have swapped the East and West, right? In the previous example, East had the Queen of Spades and Jack and 9 of clubs, and West had the other ones. This time we have swapped it. And we want to see whether the squeeze depends on the position of the busy cards with opponents, right? And it turns out in this case, it's exactly the same thing. You play the King of Hearts. It doesn't matter what West plays because all of West's cards are what would be considered as idle cards. It is not defending any of the suits which the declarer is going to play and win. So it doesn't matter what he discards, right? And North, obviously with King of Hearts, he'll play 8 of Hearts, he'll follow suit. And East has the same dilemma as West had in example 1. Regardless of whichever card he discards, it promotes an extra winner for the declarer that he would normally be not entitled to. right? For example, if uh, East was on lead, of course, East would play the Queen of Spades and win the trick. But it happens to be that East is not on lead, South is the declarer. South plays the King of Hearts, and East has to make a fatal discard. If he discards the Queen of Spades, declarer's Jack of Spades is promoted. If he discards the Nine of Clubs, then Queen six club combination in the North hand will win both tricks. So such a squeeze is called an automatic squeeze. It does not depend on the position of the busy cards. But there are other squeezes. In the next example, it's a positional squeeze. That squeeze depends on the location of the busy cards. Now, if you look at this hand, once again, South plays the King of Hearts. What is West going to discard? Well, if he discards the Ace of Clubs, the Queen of Clubs is a winner. And South has entry. He can come to North through the King of Spades. On the other hand, if West hangs on to the Ace of Clubs and discard one of his spades, right, then what's going to happen? You will run the spades. You'll play the Jack of Spades, King, and the Six of Spades is also a winner. So it is a similar situation, but now if you swap East and West, then the squeeze does not exist. Because if you swap East and West, when you play the King of Hearts, what are you going to discard from the dummy, right? I think it's in the next example, okay? You play the King of Hearts.
আপনার স্পেডের জ্যাকটা দুটো জায়গায় আছে, আপনার মনে হয় একটা কুইন হবে, রাইট? সাউথ এন্ড ইস্টে স্পেডের জ্যাক.
This should be queen, yes.
Yeah.
Sorry. This should be the Queen of Spades, sorry, yeah, thank you. So if you play the King of Hearts, what are you going to discard from the North? If you discard the Queen of Clubs, East can then discard the Ace of Clubs, because then he can defend the spade suit with his Queen 10. Sorry again, that's not Jack 10, that's Queen 10, right? On the other hand, if you discard the Six of Spades from your dummy, then East will discard one of his spades, and eventually you'll have to concede a club trick. So in this case, the squeeze does not exist because of the position of the busy cards. And this is called a positional squeeze. If you swap the East and West hands, yeah, again, this should be queen. Sorry for that. So we have automatic squeezes, we have positional squeezes. So let's now go into the science of squeeze. What are the conditions with which under which you can execute or orchestrate a squeeze? Well, let's look at the terminology a little bit more. We have talked about busy cards and idle cards. One of the terms used in squeeze is called a threat. What is a threat? A threat is a single card standing alone, which represents a potential winner. So in the previous hands, the Jack of Spades was a threat. So even though opponent has the Queen of Spades, your Jack of Spades is a threat because the opponent has to hang on to the Queen of Spades in order to prevent you from winning a trick with the Jack of Spades. So a threat is a standalone single card, which is a potential winner. A double threat is a card combination representing an entry card and a threat card in the same suit. So for example, in the last example, the Queen 6, not in the last example, in the first example, the Queen 6 in example 1 and the King 6 of Spades in example 3 are examples of double threat. So you have an entry to the king, for example, in the example 3, and there are 2 cards there. And if the opponent is squeezed, then you will win both the tricks. If you can't squeeze the opponent, you will, of course, only win 1 trick, right? And in the case of the positional squeeze, we saw that you can only win 1 trick because you can't squeeze him. Compound threat is, it's a lot of words here. I'll just read it out, but not get into discussing it now, because when we come to an example, you will see what a compound threat is. It's usually a combination of cards in one suit that is distributed between the 2 hands, between the declarer and the dummy. Let's say you have ace, small, small in clubs in your hand, and you have king, small, small in the dummy, right? So theoretically, you have entry to both hands. You can go to the king of clubs with a small club, or you can come to the ace of clubs from the dummy with a small club, right? And theoretically, with that combination, you have only 2 winners, ace and king, right? But if you can squeeze an opponent in the club suit, then you might be able to win all 3 tricks. So that's a compound threat. And what is a squeeze card? A squeeze card is usually a winner. And there are rare examples where you can squeeze by playing a loser. But that's a rather rare example, and we'll not go into that. A squeeze card is usually a winner, the play of which forces a fatal discard by a busy opponent. So in the previous examples, the king of hearts was the squeeze card. When you played the king of hearts, which is your winner, either west or east, depending on which example we are talking about, had to make a fatal discard. And that is your squeeze card. And the countdown is to orchestrate the game and come down to a point. So in the previous examples, you came down to the last 3 cards. And that is where the countdown has stopped. And that's when you apply the squeeze. So you got to know when to do the countdown, and you got to know when the situation for the squeeze has arrived, and that is when you apply the squeeze. So when I said squeeze is both an art and science, what is the science of squeeze? Basically, it is the blue law. So each of the words in the word blue, B-L-U-E, each of them has a particular meaning. So the blue law sets forth the 4 conditions which must exist in order for a squeeze to take place. So the first of this blue law, the B law, is one defender must have busy cards in 2 suits, right? We have seen the example before. And his partner is rather helpless. Partner cannot really contribute to the defense at this point, because all cards owned, which the partner has at this time, they're all idle cards. So one defender must have busy cards in 2 suits. The L law, the declarer must have only 1 loser. So you have to orchestrate the play and reach a point where all the remaining tricks are yours except 1. And the whole point of the squeeze is to somehow convert that single loser into not that particular card itself, but the fact that you have 1 loser. The whole purpose of the squeeze is to get rid of that loser and generate a winner in one of the threat cards or the threat suits, right? And the final condition is the E condition. There must be an entry to every established threat. If you don't,
ইউটা মিস করছেন।
oh, U, okay, sorry. U is of the threats that you have, 1 threat must lie in the upper hand, right? So what is the upper hand? The upper hand is the hand that plays after the declare, after the guy who is getting squeezed, after him, so that you can discard after he makes the discard, right? So if he has the ace of clubs and he discards the ace of clubs, right? Then you retain your queen of clubs, you discard something else, because then your queen of clubs is the winning trick. So you have the upper hand, you discard after him, right? So one of the threats must be in the upper hand. So in bridge, the upper hand is always the hand relative to the opponent to the right? So the dummy is the upper hand to the opponent to your left. You declare you are the upper hand to your opponent on the right because you are playing after him. So one of the conditions is at least one threat must lie in the upper hand. And finally, E, there must be an entry to every established threat. We know, we come across this situation so many times. The dummy has all very good winning cards, but you don't have an entry. So all of those winning cards are actually useless, right? So entry is absolutely the key to executing a squeeze. So let's sort of revisit the previous examples and see how the blue law actually was applicable in those examples. Because when we discussed those examples, we didn't talk about any laws. We just showed you how to do this squeeze, right? But let's revisit those examples and see that the blue law actually is applicable. So this was example one, right? So when you played the king of hearts, West was squeezed, right? The first law, the B law, West has busy cards in two suits. Remember, the first law is the defender must have busy cards in two suits. Why these are busy cards? Well, the queen is a busy card because the jack of spade is a threat. He must hang on to the queen. Otherwise, declarer is going to win the trick with the jack, right? And the jack nine of clubs are also busy cards because it is defending against the double turn queen six, right? If he discards one of them, then both queen six will win the trick. So West is in a situation where he has busy cards in two suits, right? So the B law is satisfied here. The L law says you must have just one loser of all the remaining cards at this point in play. You have all winners except one. So there are only three cards left. You have two winners, the king of hearts and the queen of clubs. These are two sure winners, right? And you have one loser out of three cards. So you have a single loser. Remember, you must come down to a situation where you have a single loser. Sometimes you have to lose a trick in order to create that condition of having only one loser. So for example, if you are playing a small slam, six of spades, right? And you have got 11 tricks, right? And in the very opening lead, you are in your hand, you win the opening lead. And you can see you have got 11 tricks. You have got two losers. If you think that you would be able to execute a squeeze near the end, you must lose a trick early to create the condition where you have got only a single loser, right? If you leave this position till the very last part of the game, you will end up with two losers and you will not be able to make the contract. So sometimes it is necessary to actually lose a trick in order to win a trick, right? It may seem counterintuitive, but that's how it is. Oh, sorry. Let me go back. So we have satisfied the B condition and the L condition. The U and E. The U condition says one threat must be in the upper hand. Now, in this case, the north is the upper hand relative to west, right? Because north plays after west, right? So we have two threats here. One is the jack of spades, it is one threat, and the queen six combination is the other threat. And the U part of the blue law states that one of the threats must be in the upper hand. So that condition is also satisfied. And finally, the E condition, the entry condition. Now, yes, queen six is a threat, but unless you have an entry here, right, it's not really a threat, right? So, for example, if you had, well, I can't give an example here, but there can be an example where you don't have a club here, right? And therefore, you can't really execute the threat. For example, if you had king small of hearts and you didn't have the club, right? So if you play the king of hearts, East will play the 10 and your other heart will lose to the queen. You cannot cash your queen of clubs because you lack entry, right? So when you are orchestrating the play from the beginning, coming to the position where you can apply the squeeze, you will have to remember that you need to have a lone single loser. You must have one of the threats in the upper hand, and you must have an entry to where that threat exists. If you don't have an entry to the threat, then of course it's pretty useless. So what is this? We're going back to example one, okay? So for example, in this example, in example one, in example one, the jack of spades was with south and the nine of spades was with east. Now we have swapped the cards, right? Now west does not have busy cards in both suits. The queen of spades is no more a busy card because his partner can defend the suit with the jack. So he can actually discard. When you think you have the squeeze, you play the king of hearts, he can discard the queen because the queen is not a busy card anymore because his partner can take over. So this is a situation where West does not have busy cards in both suits. And when you don't have busy cards in both suits, the blue condition, the very first condition is not satisfied, and you cannot execute the squeeze. And of course, West has to be cognizant of that fact that in order to defend the contract, he has to rely on his partner having the jack, right? So when he plays the king of hearts, if I am the defender, I wouldn't throw the club, because if I throw the club, I know for sure he's going to win two tricks in clubs. So I'm going to throw the queen of spades in the expectation that my partner has the jack. But if declarer has the jack, too bad. There's nothing you can do. You have been squeezed. You have been had. There is absolutely nothing you can do. You can be the best player in the world, but when the squeeze is on, you are as helpless as a beginner. So we should finish at 7:40 in another couple of minutes.
No, it's okay. We continue going.
So what I'll do is I will skip these slides. You have access to it. There are certain, with regard to condition E, the entry is a very subtle point. And you got to realize that without entry, nothing works. You might have the best cards in the dummy, but if you can't enter the dummy, it's useless. So there are various rules and there are forms. So I'll let you go through that. But what I'll do is I will take a real example. I have blocked the views of the West and East cards. And this is the North-South cards, which you can see. And this is the bidding. So South starts with the heart. West makes an overcall with one spade. Now, remember, all of this is in this information, the fact that West overcall one spade is a vital piece of information for you to apply the squeeze later on. Because what does one spade say? Well, he says he has a few points, maybe 9 or 10 points, but it says most likely he has a 5-card spade suit. You don't normally overcall without a 5-card suit, right? So that's a very vital piece of information, that bid. And that will come in handy when you figure out whether or not a squeeze is applicable or not, right? So one heart, one spade by West. North has what? 9, 11, 13, 15, 16 points, right? So even if South had a minimal hand, they have a game. So he just jumps to 3 no trumps, right? East passes. South now sees a slam possibility. Okay. Bhaskar, maybe in your next lecture, you'll tell us about this, how you think of the slam possibilities, right? Yeah. I mean, obviously now South knows that North should have 13, 14 points. Otherwise, he has no business jumping from one heart to 3 no trump. Also, South must have stoppers in spades because West had bid spades, right? So South knows his partner has some points, at least 13, if not more. So he wants to investigate a slam. So South bids 4 diamonds because he has got a nice solid 4-card suit with ace king. And now North bids 4 hearts, right? So at this point, he's saying, okay, partner, between your diamonds and hearts, I like hearts. I should have at least 2, probably 3. And now you go to Blackwood, 4 no trump, 5 diamond, only 1 ace, pass. South bids the contract at 6 hearts, right? Now, opening lead by West is king of clubs. So West has the king of clubs. So obviously West has, when he leads the king of clubs, you would expect him to also have the ace of clubs. Defending a slam contract and leading the king without having the ace is, of course, can be quite suicidal because the opponents have most of the cards. So king of clubs definitely gives you the information, and all of these informations you have to collect in your mind very quickly in order to be able to see whether the blue condition, the BLU condition for squeeze exists or not. So the opening lead of king of clubs is an information. He wins the trick, of course. He is sensible enough not to follow with the ace because he can see the now queen jack in the dummy. And if South is a singleton, that will promote one of his clubs. So West does the sensible thing of not following with the ace of clubs. That's the correct line of play. Although I've seen in many times that this could have a doubles done and West could have missed out on defeating the contract. But that's another matter. In this case, West does the right thing. He does not follow with the ace of clubs. What does he do? At this point, he plays the queen of spades. Remember, he bid spades. He has a 5-card spade suit. Now, as a declarer, how many tricks are you looking at? Sure winners. You have 6 heart tricks. You have 3 diamond winners. The diamond might generate a 4th winner, but you don't know. So at this point, you have 6 heart tricks, 3 diamond tricks, 9, and you have ace king of spades, 11. You have 11 tricks, right? And you have already lost 1 trick. So in terms of the loser L condition, B-L-U-E, you have already lost a trick. You can't lose anymore. So you are already satisfying the L condition of the squeeze. Do you have the busy condition? The busy condition is one opponent must have busy cards in 2 suits. Now clearly, West has a busy card in the ace of clubs. He has to hang on to the ace of clubs, because if he discards it, your you can discard one club, but your other club will be a winner. So that's a busy card. Also, West has 5 spades. And how many spades do you have? You have, between the 2 hands, you have 6 spades. So 6 and 5, 11. Well, West might have 6 carded suit, but the best scenario for them, he has 5 spades, 5 and 4, 9, and 2, 11. So East has only 2 spades. So it doesn't matter what spade holding East has, they will be smothered by the ace and king. So East might even have the queen jack doubleton. It doesn't matter, right? As you play the ace and king, those 2 will fall. So West will have a busy card in spades, because if West skips discarding spades, eventually you will run your spade suit. Not necessarily 4. All you need is an extra 1 more trick, because you have 11 tricks in your hand. You just need to generate an extra trick, and that extra trick has to come either from a nice diamond break. So that's obviously what you will try first. If the diamond breaks, you have 4 tricks in diamonds, 6 tricks in hearts, 10, and 2 tricks in spades. The job is done. But if diamond doesn't break, then your next option is a squeeze. And the squeeze will happen in clubs and spades, because West has both the busy cards in those 2 suits. How do you know? You know he has the ace of clubs from his opening lead, and you know he has the length in spades, and therefore East can have only 2. So regardless of East's holding, those 2 will fall under the ace and king. So West will have the busy card in spades, right? And as long as you have 1 spade left, so West has led a spade, you win the spade with the ace, right? You obviously discard the 2. So you have the 5 of spades left here, right? And this will provide the entry to the dummy. If West discards too many spades, you will play the 5 of spades and you will win 3 tricks in spades. If West discards his ace of clubs, then you will enter the dummy with the ace of spade and win your 12th trick with the queen of clubs. So let's see how you will orchestrate the play. So you have lost the first trick, so you got to win all the remaining tricks, right? So what you do is you play 6 rounds of hearts and 3 rounds of diamonds, right? Now, when you play 3 rounds of diamonds, you discover that the diamonds don't break, right? So you play 6 rounds of heart and you end up in your hand. So it doesn't matter in which combination you play ace, king, queen. You don't want to get stuck in the dummy with the 3rd trump card. So you don't want to play ace, king of hearts and a heart to the queen. That's, you have destroyed the game, because then you can't come back to your hand again, right? If you have played the diamonds. So you play the ace of hearts, cross over to dummy to the queen of hearts, come back to your hand with the king of hearts, and then you play not 6 rounds of hearts. Let's say you play 5 rounds of hearts, right? And if you play 5 rounds of hearts, how many hearts do you how many discards do you have to do from the dummy, right? And also you have played 3 rounds of diamonds. So in the dummy there are no more diamonds to discard, right? You have to make 2 discards from from the dummy, because you're playing 5 rounds of hearts. Of the 5 rounds, you follow suit for 3 rounds, right? So one discard you can make on the club. So one club was already played in the opening round. You discard the jack of clubs. So you hang on to the queen of clubs, which is a threat because West is holding the ace of clubs. And you can discard one spade, right? So when you have played 3 rounds of diamonds and 5 rounds of hearts, right? What you will be left in your hand, well, this is the hand, but what you will be left in your hand is the following situation, right? You have played 5 rounds of hearts. You have played 3 rounds of diamonds, that's 8. Opening lead was club, that's 9. And 1 round of spade, which West led, 10. So 10 cards have been played, and you are down to this situation. You have got 2 winners, 8 of hearts and king of spade. You have 1 loser of the 3 tricks. However, West has the busy cards in both the suits, and 8 is your squeeze card. You play the 8 of hearts now. What is West going to do? He is in a losing position. If he discards the ace of clubs, you discard the 6 of spades, come round to the dummy in the king of spades, and your queen of clubs is a winner. If he discards a spade, then you discard your club, and your king 6 will win 2 tricks. So even though your original club spade suit here was ace king small small, because of the length and because of the fact that West had to hang on to his spades, and because of the fact that East had only 2 spades, which were of no consequence, because the 2 spades would fall under the ace and king, right? So North held a threat in 2 suits, in spades and in clubs. And West had the busy cards in both the suits, and he's squeezed. So this is the actual hand. As you can see, the diamonds don't break. So you can play ace king queen of diamonds. The diamonds don't break. West did make a legitimate 1 spade overcall with a 5 card suit. West led the defense with the king of clubs, winning the very first trick, right? But after that, South sees the opportunity of a squeeze if the diamonds don't break, and which they don't, sees an opportunity to squeeze West in spades and clubs. Normally, if you are the defender, you think, oh my God, I have queen, jack, 10, 8, 7 of spades. You know, I can never be squeezed. I can always defend spades. But as it turns out, he is unable to defend spades eventually. After making enough discards, he has got only 3 hearts. So when he plays 5 rounds of hearts, he has to make 2 discards. So what are the 2 discards? And also there are 3 rounds of diamonds, right? So he can make 1 discard in club, and he has to make 2 discards in spades. He has already played 1 spade, right? So he played the queen, he discards 7, and then he can discard 2 more, and then he's down to 2, jack 10, right? And he can discard no more. So when the final squeeze card is played, he is squeezed. If he discards 1 more, then the king 6 combination in the dummy will run. Or if he discards his ace of clubs, then his queen of clubs will run. So I think I'm nearly finished. I think the next game starts in about 7 minutes. So if you have any questions, we have just a couple of minutes. Otherwise, thank you for listening. And
থ্যাংক ইউ মুশফিক ভাই। কারো কোয়েশ্চেন থাকলে প্লিজ আস্ক।
আমার একটা কোশ্চেন ছিল, যদি ওয়েস্ট কোনো কল না দিত তাহলে কি আমাদের কোনো স্কুইজ সম্ভাবনা ছিল? স্কুইজ সিচুয়েশন গ্যারেজ করতো?
West call না দিলে it would be difficult to figure out that the squeeze condition exists. But when there is no other possibility, you try that. You would also look at what East is discarding. Suppose West never called, never made a bid. I mean, in this case, he should. He has got 7, 8, 10, 11 points, right? And South has only opened one heart. So if you're not going to overcall one spade now, when are you going to make an overcall? But let's say West did not make an overcall, right? So when you are playing your hearts, East has to make a lot of discards. And you might be able to figure out that all the spades lie with the West. But you're right. If West had not overcalled one spade, and if he had not led Queen of Spade as the second trick, it would not be that easy. But West having done that has provided you with the information. And your job as declarer really is to harness the information that you gather, both from the bidding and the play of your opponent.
Thank you.
No, thank you, মুশফিক ভাই। আপনি খুব সুন্দরভাবে এই স্কুইজ সিস্টেমটা বললেন, আর আমি খুব পছন্দ করি। আই লাভ দিস। আমার লাইভে খেলার মধ্যে আমি অনেক সময় এই খেলাগুলো করে আমি খুব আত্মতৃপ্তি পাই, মজা পাই শেষের দিকে। সো স্কুইজ একটা ভেরি ইম্পর্টেন্ট একটা বিষয়। আপনাকে অনেক সময় দেখা গেল কালার খেলে খেলে ওদেরকে স্কুইজ করা যায়, অনেক সময় নোট্রামে একটা লম্বা জিনিস খেলে আমরা অনেক সময় ভুল করি যে আমরা যে আমাদের লম্বা সুট বা আমরা 5 টাকা 6টা একবারে নিতে পারি, ওইটা নিতে যাওয়ার সময় মানে অন্য অপোনেন্ট কি ফাঁসাচ্ছে এবং তার উপরে আমার কি বেনিফিট হচ্ছে এটা অনেক সময় আমরা খেয়াল করি না। হ্যাঁ, আমরা অন্যান্য রিস্ক গুলো আগে নিতে যেয়ে আমরা অনেক গেমটা নষ্ট করি বা বড় গেম নষ্ট করি। এটা খুব সুন্দরভাবে বুঝিয়েছেন, খুব ক্রিটিক্যাল একটা পয়েন্ট দিয়ে বুঝিয়েছেন। এটা আমি খুব পছন্দ করলাম যে এইভাবে কাউন্ট করলে তা বোঝা যায় যে তার কয়টা কার্ড আছে এবং ওই হাতে কয়টা কার্ড আছে। এটা খুব ক্রিটিক্যাল। তবে স্কুজ একটা এমন একটা বিষয়, আমি জাস্ট শেষ করব যে উপর নিচে যাওয়ার আগে থেকে প্ল্যান থাকতে হবে।
ওই যে এন্ট্রি, যেটা বললাম এন্ট্রি।
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ, এন্ট্রিটা ভেরি ইম্পর্টেন্ট। আপনার প্রথম থেকে খেলার সময় বুঝতে হবে যে আমি এগুলো যখন একটা বিষয়ে ফ্রি করব তখন আমি নিচে যাব কোন সময় বা কিভাবে যাব, এইটুকুই আমার বলার বিষয়। থ্যাংক ইউ অল।
And coming back to that point, entry ব্যাপারে ওই আমার যে স্লাইডগুলো আমি আলোচনা করিনি, it is in the pack, and if you go through the pack you'll see that entry ব্যাপারে there are 4 or 5 slides, and those are very important.
স্লাইডগুলো কিছুক্ষণ প্রত্যেকটা রাখলে তাহলে সবাই দেখতে পারতো, ভিডিওতে থাকতো। এনিওয়ে, একটা কোশ্চেন ছিল মুশফিক ভাই, আপনি বলেছেন যে একটা রুল, ব্লু রুলের একটা রুল হচ্ছে ইউ, দ্যাট মিন্স আপার, তার মানে আপারে একটা উইনার থাকতে হবে,
থ্রেড থাকতে হবে,
থ্রেড থাকতে হবে। সো এটা কি এসেনশিয়াল? আপনার যদি আপনার হাতেই যদি দুটো উইনার একটা লুজার থাকে তাহলে কি স্কুইজ হবে না?
না, এক হাতে you can't have both the threads in the same hand. The threads must be distributed either in the dummy or it must be distributed between the two hands. Dummy মানে in the upper hand. So যখন ওই to your left সে খেলছে, ও ডিসকার্ড করার পরে তুমি ডিসকার্ড করছো, হ্যাঁ। সো ও যদি এইস অফ ক্লাব ডিসকার্ড করে এই লাস্ট এক্সাম্পলে, then you discard your spade and you keep your queen of clubs.
এন্ড স্কুইজটা তো আসলে মানে খালি ডিক্লেয়ারের জন্য না, যারা ডিফেন্ড করতেছে দে ক্যান অলসো ডু স্কুইজ, এম আই রাইট?
হ্যাঁ,
যদি হয়
it can. ওই সেম কন্ডিশনস অ্যাপ্লাই, ওই the blue condition, মানে when the play of the hand comes to a point where you have all winners except one, which is loser J condition. You want to convert that losing card trick into a winning trick. So the defenders can squeeze you. Can squeeze the declare.
আর কারো কোনো প্রশ্ন আছে?
এমনি একটা কোশ্চেন ছিল ভাইয়া, আপনি কি কোনো বই ফলো করেন বা কোনো কিছু সাজেস্ট করেন বা কোনো ডকুমেন্ট, কোনো পিডিএফ বা সামথিং, মানে আদার দেন দেয়ার ম্যাটেরিয়াল?
অনেক বছর আগে, many years ago, I had a partner who was a SCBL grandmaster, and he taught me the basics of squeeze. তারপরে এই ভাস্কর যখন বলা মানে ইনসিস্ট করলো যে I should give a lecture, I had to look up the material to prepare the pack. But I'm quite sure যে there are books এবং অনলাইনেও যথেষ্ট মেটেরিয়াল আছে।
থ্যাংক ইউ
মুশফিক ভাই ফর ডুইং দিস। থ্যাংক ইউ ভেরি মাচ। আপনার অনেক সকাল আমরা জানি, আর আমরা এই টপিকটা, এই আমাদের ডিসকাশন সেশনটা আমরা কন্টিনিউ করছি প্রত্যেক সপ্তাহে। আগামী 4 উইকস এভরি উইকে আমরা অলরেডি স্কেডিউল করা আছে। তো আগামী সপ্তাহে আমি কথা বলবো, আমি যদিও এক্সপার্ট না, আমি কথা বলবো যে কিভাবে when to do slam, how to explore slam, কখন আমরা বুঝবো স্ল্যাম আছে এবং কি মেথড আমরা অ্যাপ্লাই করব। তো থ্যাংক ইউ ভেরি মাচ। আমাদের টাইম হয়ে গেছে হিউস্টন গো খেলার জন্য। সো থ্যাংক ইউ এগেইন মুশফিক ভাই। আর এই লিংকটা আমি পোস্ট করে দিব গ্রুপে, তো আমাদের ইউটিউব চ্যানেলে। থ্যাংক ইউ এভরিবডি ফর জয়নিং।
আল্লাহ হাফেজ।